Elliott, pleasure to see you again.
Likewise, good to see you.
Good to see you. I'll get straight to it. Okay, so it's so easy to see DC as like the city of power. It's like, I mean, it's conceived as the city of this new empire. It's the mall, it's some of the most famous buildings in the world. But really, this is also one of the most diverse cities in the United States.
Absolutely. I think that, to your point, Hollywood and Capitol Hill has done a really good job of painting DC from a specific perspective that's tied to the federal experience, which is important.
Sure.
It's the seat of power of the U.S., and that's why we have so many amazing attractions that are attached to, museums, memorials in Washington. But to your point, there's so many different other aspects of our destination that, when I moved there 21 years ago, we've been continuously saying to individuals that are coming. My favorite thing that journalists or anyone that's traveling to the U.S. say when they come to Washington is that we had no idea how green it was, how walkable, two rivers, all the things that make Washington a unique destination. Of course, no building is taller than 9 stories, so you've got these great views of all the monuments in the city. It was laid out by the European community, the French. So it's a vibrant international destination with only 700,000 people that live in that great city.
Actually, that is worth reiterating. Only 700,000 people.
And that's, no matter where I am in the world, especially in Asia, the perception is 15 million people live in Washington. And
big city, big population.
Of course, 700,000 is a small suburb for a lot of major cities.
Right. And just to go back to that point, so honestly, one of my favorite experiences I've ever had in the United States is a bike tour.
Yep.
I mean, honestly, one, it's a flat city, so it's not as if you're cycling up hills, but it's interesting. Yes, the federal side of it is fascinating, but to speak to that point, all this green space, all this beautiful water space. I mean, there is a sense of like, you're in a city, but you're in a bucolic atmosphere that is actually very, very calming.
Right, and very shocking to visitors.
Yeah.
Rock Creek Park is larger than Central Park in New York City.
Yeah.
It's more, you feel like you're in a natural preserve. I mean, and it's so unique because you're in Washington, D.C., and what's in Rock Creek Park? Kennedy Center, the Watergate building, things that are iconic that people are familiar with, but then it's juxtaposition to this extremely large natural experience in the city that then is not flat and more terrain, and so therefore people go hiking and fishing and do all these amazing things in Washington, D.C. So, and that's the uniqueness of our destination. Yeah, there are a lot of great changes to the waterfront. If you were in Washington for IPW in 2017, you saw the first phase of the wharf.
Yes.
Second phase is opening next month.
I saw that. So, is it Gordon Ramsay's Hell's Kitchen is opening up?
Yes.
There's a couple of, like, as he curses his way through more fame, whatever.
And people still love him.
I know. It's such a busy. Anyway. Whatever, there are fans of Gordon Ramsay.
Right.
I get that what he does, but it really just speaks to the wharf as this very exciting emergent destination.
Right.
Yeah.
And it ties to parts of the city that did not exist, that no one would go to 10 or 15 years ago, where the Nats Stadium is, where baseball is played, where our new soccer or European football team plays at Audi Field. These are areas of Washington that no one would have gone to, that in a few years you see they're now a huge part of the visit to Washington above and beyond the federal experience.
Could they have come up with a better name than the Commanders?
They didn't ask me. But
I mean, I get that the name change was important.
Yeah.
I get it. But the Commanders?
If no matter what you change your name to, there's always going to be a percentage of people that are not going to be.
Yeah, sure.
So you're yes, they could have, but then whatever that other name was, people
are going to be.
Yeah.
There are parts of the city that years ago, a decade or more ago, you wouldn't really walk around in, or not certainly wouldn't be the most inviting. Again, along with that bike ride, one of my most memorable experiences is ambling down U Street and going to Oohs and Ahs. And I realize that Oohs and Ahs is quite a tourist thing, but I mean, the food is gorgeous, the welcome is lovely. There was a marching band that day, a high school marching band, just happened to be going down U Street, and I still have these wonderful memories of a DC, a city of diversity, a city of inclusivity. So, I mean, one of the initiatives, talk to me a bit about DEI.
Yeah, for a city like Washington, for a long time, Washington was known as Chocolate City, tied to the large black population. And it has become more diverse, which is not a bad thing, but it's still known as a very diverse city that's heavily influenced by the black community.
Yeah.
As we were grappling as a nation with racism in 2020, it really played out in Washington, the first Black Lives Matter Plaza on 16th Street in front of the White House. Very interesting time in Washington, but an opportunity for us to really focus more on the importance of inclusivity, and also recognize that there's still a lot of things in which we need to learn as a nation, and we need to focus on Washington D.C., the nation's capital. It should start in a city like Washington, and the message should be tied to all industries, really coming to terms to the inequality that exists globally, but also in America, and America's sordid past, which made it the superpower that it is today. So that experience is present in Washington, D.C. for folks to be able to come, be at the Frederick Douglass House, a major abolitionist in the 1800s that is in Washington and historic Anacostia, to things tied to Black Lives Matter and protest tourism that folks can enjoy and visit. The goal for us is to make sure that that message and the conversation continues from a federal level, as well as organizations and industries like hospitality.
From a trade, Irish travel trade perspective, talk to me about like hotel rooms, growth of new hotels, opening of new hotels.
Yeah, it's been very encouraging to see the level of new properties there in the city. We have a new Waldorf Astoria, was a former property. We have a new Salamander Hotel, which is a resort 45 minutes outside of Washington.
Oh, right, okay.
That has taken over the former Mandarin Hotel in Washington.
Right, okay.
So there are a lot of changes, a lot of infrastructure changes with hotels that have been renovated. A lot of mid-tier service level properties, which we needed. We needed that opportunity for folks to be able to stay in a 5-star hotel and or a limited service hotel that's for those individuals that are on a more limited budget. So, as we've looked at the changes, there are well over 10,000 new hotel rooms on the horizon in Washington in the next 36 months.
Okay, so that's a key figure, 10,000 new hotel rooms.
Yes.
Okay. Because, and again, it's worth reiterating that Washington, D.C. is both a destination unto itself, and as someone who spent a good bit of time in D.C. in years past, it's also, there is such immediate access to some of the most beautiful countryside.
Right.
That you will find anywhere along the eastern seaboard.
And the uniqueness of that statement is that you're driving 20 to 30 minutes to see that. 45 minutes to the wine country. Yes, there is wine country in Virginia, right outside of Washington.
Okay, I didn't know about this.
Loudoun County,
really?
Wine country, horse country, amazing. And you're not even 45 minutes to an hour, and you're in this amazing natural environment where the other Salamander Hotel is, that is tied to, the cultivation of wine. They've won some major awards. Not as well known as California, Oregon, and Washington State, but
give it time.
But on the East Coast,
sure,
East Coast is not known for wine except for Loudoun County.
I mean, it is to me is that my one of my bucket list trips is spend a few days in D.C. Just get around the city, eat in nice restaurants, stay in a nice hotel, but then get into a car and just go and explore, whether it's Virginia, and then even go as far as West Virginia, but also Maryland and
Annapolis, Baltimore, and the list goes on. And we actually have we are focusing on D.C. as a destination, but Capital Region USA allows the state of Maryland, Virginia, and Washington, D.C. and our airports authority to promote the region to the global community. Because to your point, it is a hidden gem that most global visitors are not aware of.
It is. I mean, it is. Everybody knows Washington D.C. As I said at the outset, is that we know this as the capital of the world's most powerful democracy, etc., etc. But yet, relatively few people are really aware of what DC has to offer, and I just think that that's an interesting dichotomy.
No, you're absolutely right. I mean, I think the reality is people think they know DC.
Yeah.
They know it from The West Wing. They know it from all the TV shows and movies that are tied to the federal government, or they know it from politics, but then they come, and the shocker. I had no idea DC was green, walkable. They did an amazing twilight tour of the monuments by bicycle, as you referenced.
Beautiful.
And they have these great experience, the culinary scene, all these great things, sports, theater, the second largest number of theater seats outside of New York City. So these are things that we
you go
want
to the theater and
expose.
not get shot.
And then there's that.
There's a reference to President Lincoln, by the way, not to anything.
Not anything else, but good old Ford's Theater, which is still in existence today. But I mean, and those are the things that people say about Washington. 185 embassies in Washington, a large global community, 700,000 people. So just imagine how that has influenced the food scene and so many other scenes in terms of music. You were talking about U Street. I love the fact that on one block you're listening to jazz, Duke Ellington, and next minute you're in one of the coolest Ethiopian restaurants.
Yes.
And the next one you're dancing on a rooftop. And that's prevalent throughout the city, and there's so much diversity and culture tied to that experience.
I'm smiling like a Cheshire cat because this is exactly what I love about DC. It's exactly that.
And I appreciate that. I love the fact that my favorite thing to do if I'm traveling, and the guy that sells DC is going to say great things about DC, but if I find someone in the audience and I pick on them in a nice way and say, hey, stand up, tell us what you thought about DC before you came, and what you realized when you weren't there. The overwhelming reaction is we thought we would go and just take pictures in the traditional spaces. We had no idea how even vast that was, with 16 free museums, including the zoo. But then we left wishing that we stayed longer. We're going to come back, and we're influencing other people. And here are the reasons why, similar to what you said.
Elliott Ferguson, a pleasure as always.
Likewise.
Thank you very much.